Good morning everybody, welcome to Watchoholic with me, YouTube Stuart Russell, a safe and friendly place on the web for those with an incurable addiction to all things horological. You can join and connect with me on Instagram if you want. My Instagram is showing down there. It is Naked Wrist. That's a place to connect with me to see some of the watches that I'm talking about over the course of these videos. In this particular video today, I would like to talk about two things, specifically questions that tend to get asked to me by people who are maybe starting off in this hobby, or colleagues or friends or family who have a bit of an interest in watches but are not quite as into it as I am. And the two most popular questions that I tend to get asked are, what should I buy? And associated to that is what brand? And also, where should I buy it? And I'll come on to a third question as well a little bit later, which is all about investments. Well, I suppose they're kind of allied, really, they're related, questions 1 and 3. So to deal with each of those in turn, question number 1, what should I buy? And the simple answer to me is always buy what you like. I have picked up a whole number of watches over the years. Some of them have been relatively cheap, some of them have been a bit more expensive, but I am very design led. I'm very interested in the design of watches. That's usually the thing that catches my eye, and the brand and the price point are almost kind of secondary issues. I mean, obviously you can afford what you can afford and you can't what you can't, but generally I'm much more interested in the design and the aesthetic. Some people are very interested in brands. You know, some people want to buy into a very specific brand. If you're somebody who is motivated by the idea of a watch as a status symbol, and you want to buy into a specific brand, I guess the most obvious one is Rolex, and you want people to see that you're wearing a Rolex, then that's fine, that's entirely up to you, and I'm not going to draw any judgments as to whether that is a good thing or a bad thing. It doesn't really do it for me, to be honest with you, but you know, each to their own, and who am I to judge? But I think the most important thing is buy what you like, buy what you want, and wear it and enjoy it. I always think watches are similar to cars in the sense that they're designed to be used. I don't like the idea of watches sitting in a safety deposit box somewhere. I think it is important if you buy a watch to wear it and to use it for its primary purpose. I'm not really into these things as investment pieces to kind of squirrel away and not use. And I'll talk about investments in a moment. Another very common question that gets asked is, where should I buy my watch from? Now, if you walk into a shopping mall or a shopping centre, you will be confronted with a whole number of watch stores, jewellery stores, and they will have agencies for the brands that they carry. And you'll come across a whole bunch of brands in those kinds of stores, big brands that most people know: Breitling, Longines, Tag Heuer, Tudor, to name but a few. There are lots of brands out there that I would refer to as being high street brands. And if you buy a watch from one of those authorised dealers, then there's a certain process and a certain experience that you're going to go through and have. So the advantage of buying from an authorised dealer is that you will get to sit down, you'll get to try the watch on. If you like it, then they will adjust it for you if it's on a metal bracelet so that it fits you properly, and you will have a very particular kind of experience. And if you buy enough watches from an authorised dealer over time, then obviously you will develop a rapport with that dealer, which may mean that you get to negotiate a certain discount on future purchases over time, and you may find if watches are a little bit scarce, a bit rare or hard to get hold of, if you've bought a number of watches from that authorised dealer, then you may find that you get pushed a little bit higher up on waiting lists if if you add your name to lists for watches that are maybe a little bit harder to get. I, like a lot of people, started off buying watches from an authorised dealer, but then over time I decided that that was perhaps less relevant for me, in the sense that a lot of people working in retail are young, they're starting off in their careers, and I didn't necessarily feel the need to spend time talking to young guys in skinny suits with hair like a deep fried hedgehog, who didn't really know an awful lot about the subject matter, and sometimes that I knew a little bit more about it than they did. So the alternative to an authorised dealer is to buy from one of the many different websites that are out there. Now, a lot of the brands the big watch brands have been very reluctant to get into e-commerce. The tide is turning. A few more brands now will offer watches direct to the public on their websites, but obviously you're going to pay full retail price if you buy it direct from the manufacturer, whereas there are a whole number of other websites out there where you can buy watches and you will save yourself a little bit of money. You'll have to do things like bracelet adjustment yourself, but I don't think that's a particularly difficult job, and I do it all the time, and I'm no rocket surgeon. So there are plenty of websites out there. Now you do have to be careful, because there are a lot of websites that offer replica watches that are fakes, obviously. So you have to be a little bit careful where you spend your money, and there are plenty of cowboys out there on the web who will happily relieve you of your cash and deliver something to you that's substandard. But there are also a lot of legitimate websites out there that will sell you watches. I've used a few. There is a company in the UK called Iconic Watches. There's another company with an office in the UK, although they're a German company, called Chronext. I've used them both. I have no affiliation to either of them other than being a satisfied customer. And with a little bit of research, and also if you look at any of the watch forums out there, of which there are many, then you will very quickly, I think, get a sense for who the good guys are and who the e-commerce merchants are to avoid. Now, in some occasions with these third-party websites that are not affiliated with any of the manufacturers, you may find that the warranty for the watch, for any repair work that is required, lies with the retailer rather than necessarily with the manufacturer. But any of the good ones will have a qualified watchmaker in-house who will be qualified to carry out any warranty work that's required on the brand that you've bought. So I wouldn't necessarily get too hung up on the whole issue of warranty. Like I say, I think if you go with one of the well-established third-party e-tailers, I suppose is the term, then I think you're in fairly secure hands, and I myself have never really had an issue with any of those people. So I'll put some links in the description of some people that I've used. Do a little bit of research, play it safe, go with somebody who's established, and you can save yourself a reasonable amount of money on your next purchase. Finally, in this video, I would like to come on to the vexed question of investments. Now, I get asked on a reasonably regular basis by people who are developing an interest in watches this question. I don't have an awful lot of money, but I would like to invest some money in a good watch. What can I buy that is going to appreciate in value? Something that I can hang on to and it's going to go up in terms of value. And the simple answer to that question is, if I knew, I certainly wouldn't be sitting here telling you. As I said earlier, I think it's very important for you to buy what you like, wear what you like, what appeals to me. And I think watches are sometimes a little bit like works of art. You see something and you either have a connection with it or you don't. and all of the watches that I've bought are ones that I've felt a connection with, and so I've acquired them. I don't think it is really possible to second guess what's going to happen to a watch's value. I think it's a little bit like trying to buy a car and trying to second guess what might go up in value in the future versus what might go down. And certainly some watches will depreciate more than others. I think it's probably fair to say that there are certain brands, and if you buy it today and you pay retail price for it, in a few years' time it's probably going to be worth less than what you paid for it today. Just picking a brand out of thin air, for example, Baume & Mercier, which is a Swiss brand. I quite like some of their watches, but I think amongst the collector community there's a general view that you can pick them up pre-owned for about 60% of what the retail price would be, and there's not a particularly vibrant second-hand market for those watches, so they're probably a better proposition pre-owned than buying brand new. As with cars, sometimes cars can take 25, 30 years plus to go up in value, to appreciate. I don't necessarily view watches as being a great long-term investment relative to other things, so I think the best that you can probably do is to buy whatever you like, wear it, enjoy it, look after it, have your watches, if they're automatic, well, quartz as well actually, if they're good ones, have them serviced on a regular basis. They will last you for a long time if you look after them well, and maybe in 20 or 30 years time you'll be lucky and you'll find out that something's become rare and it's gone up in value, but either way I think the pleasure is in having the items and wearing them and using them on a regular basis. I don't like the idea of these things being put away in safety deposit boxes and only ever seeing the light of day once or twice a year. So very difficult to predict in terms of investments. There are certain things, certain watches that are kind of more likely than others. Some of the latest Rolex sports models are probably reasonable bets. But there is no surefire winner, that's for sure. And if I knew the answer to what was going to make me money, I certainly wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation with you about it. So I would suggest you don't worry about it and probably go for investment propositions that are a little bit more secure.